She was just a poor girl from the slums, forced to marry a billionaire who hated her from day one. On their wedding night, he abandoned her, but what happened next will break your heart and heal it again. This isn't just a love story, it's a story of revenge, growth, and redemption. Amara sat by the cracked window of their small one-room apartment in Ajigono, watching as the rain tapped rhythmically against the rusted corrugated iron roofing. The scent of wet sand and steaming refuse from the nearby drainage filled the air, but she had long stopped noticing. Her sketchbook rested on her lap, pages worn and stained from years of use. She was working on a new design, a long, flowing gown with a high slit and ankara embroidery on the sleeves. One day, she told herself, she would make it real. One day, someone would walk a runway wearing her creation. That day seemed far away. Her aunt, Mama Obi, shuffled around the room behind her, the sound of plastic slippers slapping against the damp floor. She was muttering under her breath, searching for something, perhaps her wrapper or her phone. Amara had grown used to her aunt's constant agitation, her unpredictable moods, and her short temper. "Amara," she called sharply. "Come here. Sit down." Amara turned slowly, wiping her palms on her faded trousers. Her heart always raced a little when her aunt spoke like that. It usually meant trouble. "What is it, auntie?" she asked quietly, perching on the edge of the only couch in the room. Mama Obi didn't answer immediately. Instead, she dug into a drawer, pulled out a crumpled piece of paper, and waved it in Amara's face. "You think this life is a joke, eh? You think you can sit here drawing your clothes and our problems will solve themselves?" Amara said nothing. She had learned early that silence was safer. "This paper," Mama Obi said, slamming it down on the table, "is the final notice. If we don't pay back the loan your mother took before she vanished, they'll come and throw us out. Do you want that?" "But that was her loan, not mine," Amara said softly, her voice trembling. "Don't be stupid, girl. When your mother disappeared, she left everything behind, including her debts. I've carried the burden for 18 years, and now I'm tired. I can't do it anymore." Amara blinked back tears. Her mother. The memory was a haze, just a blurry face, a warm hug, a lullaby sung in low tones. And then, gone. Just like that. Vanished without a trace. "So what do we do?" she asked after a long silence. Mama Obi inhaled sharply, her face twisting into something unreadable. "There's a way. But you have to be obedient. You have to trust me." Amara's heart dropped. She knew what that meant. It was never good when Mama Obi said, "Trust me." "I've spoken to Chief Ikena," she continued, her tone clipped and businesslike. "You'll be marrying his son, Obina. The wedding is in 2 weeks. Amara stood up so suddenly the sketchbook dropped from her lap. "What?" she gasped. "Marry who?" "Obina. Chief's son. They are billionaires. They'll take care of you. Of us. Once you're in that house, our problem is over." "No," Amara shouted. "I don't even know him." Mama Obi crossed her arms. "You don't need to know him. Just say yes. He doesn't need a wife for love. He needs one for reputation. You'll be taken care of. You'll live in Lekki, eat whatever you want, wear clothes from Dubai." "I don't want any of that," Amara cried, shaking her head. "I have dreams. I want to go to fashion school. I want to." "You want to keep dreaming in this gutter? Is that it? Go and marry a tailor's son and die poor like your mother." The slap came fast, silencing Amara's protest. It wasn't the first time her aunt had hit her, but this one felt different. It wasn't just a slap, it was a sentence. That night, Amara cried quietly under her thin bedsheet, her tears mixing with the leaking roof as rain dripped from the ceiling into a rusted bowl near the bed. In 2 weeks, she would become a wife. Not by love, not by choice, but by desperation. The wedding was a private affair. No guests. No dancing. Just signatures, whispered instructions, and awkward photographs. Amara wore a borrowed gown from one of Mama Obi's friends, a size too big and patched under the arm. Obinna didn't bother wearing a smile. He barely looked at her. He was tall, undeniably handsome, with a square jaw and piercing eyes that scanned people like data. But his coldness was unmistakable. Even the officiating pastor seemed nervous around him. After the brief ceremony, Amora was bundled into a black-tinted Range Rover. Obinna didn't sit beside her. Instead, he rode in a separate car behind with his best friend and assistant, Uche. The mansion in Lekki Phase 1 was everything she had never known. Marble floors, glass walls, chandeliers, and silence. The kind of silence that echoed your thoughts back to you. She was shown to her room by a housekeeper who said little and disappeared quickly. That night, she waited on the bed, unsure of what to expect. She had heard stories, both frightening and hopeful. Maybe he would at least talk to her. Maybe he would explain things. Maybe he would even. Her thoughts were cut off by the buzz of her phone. A message from an unknown number. She opened it. "Don't wait for me. I'm on a flight to Dubai. Don't touch anything in the master bedroom. Stay out of my way. Obinna." She read it twice. Then again. Amora sat frozen. The air conditioner hummed quietly, mocking her. It was her wedding night, and she was alone. Alone in a house that wasn't hers, with a man who didn't want her. She crawled under the duvet, curled up like a child, and cried silently into the sheets. Her fingers gripped the edge of the pillow as her body trembled. She had never felt more alone in her life. She had never felt more invisible. The days that followed were worse. Obinna returned 5 days later, but not to see her. He walked past her in the hallway like she was the help. When she greeted him, he didn't respond. When she offered to serve him food, he laughed and told the chef to feed her with leftovers. She tried to stay busy. Cleaning, reading old magazines, and scrolling through fashion pages on Instagram. But even that felt like a betrayal. What dreams could a woman like her afford anymore? One afternoon, while dusting the bookshelves in the study, she found a pile of fashion books, rare editions, some autographed. Her eyes lit up. She opened one and got lost for hours, flipping through pages, absorbing knowledge, sketching with a pen she found on the desk. It was the only place in the mansion that felt like a world of her own. That evening, Obinna walked in and caught her there. "What are you doing in here?" he barked. She jumped to her feet. I was just reading. I didn't touch anything. This is not your father's house. Next time I see you in my study, I'll have the locks changed." She nodded, eyes on the floor. He didn't stop to see her tears. Obinna was cruel in a way that felt deliberate. He never shouted unnecessarily, but his silence was louder than insults. He never hit her, but his absence was its own form of violence. Every morning, he left the house before she woke. Every night, he returned after she had gone to bed. The staff barely acknowledged her. She was a shadow in her own home. But even shadows have depth. One evening, as she sat outside in the garden sketching under the moonlight, the gate security guard, an elderly man named Boba Sul, approached quietly. "Madam," he said gently, "you draw very well." She smiled faintly. "Thank you. Why don't you enter for that competition?" "What competition?" "The Lagos Young Designers Challenge. It's on Instagram. They are picking 3 winners to train with top fashion houses abroad." Her heart skipped. That night, she searched for it. The deadline was in 7 days. They needed a sketch, a short video, and a brief write-up. She got to work. Every night, while Obinna slept or traveled, she worked. She used fabric from old curtains. She stitched by hand. She filmed her process in secret. Boba Sul helped her upload it. She didn't expect to win. But she did. Out of thousands of entries, hers was picked. Her name appeared in Billionaire and Instablog headlines, "Unknown girl from Ajigona wins big in fashion challenge." The news exploded. And for the first time, Obinna looked at her, not like a burden, but with confusion. And something else. Fear. He had built his world on control, and now, the girl he thought was invisible had stepped into the spotlight. Amora didn't say a word to him. She didn't need to. She had found her voice. And it spoke louder than anything he had ever said. The morning after the announcement, Amora woke up to a new kind of silence, one filled with tension rather than emptiness. The house was no longer still, it was alert. Staff members who once ignored her now greeted her with nervous smiles. Even the chef, who used to serve her reheated leftovers, asked politely if she wanted something freshly made for breakfast. She sat at the edge of the dining table, unsure whether to accept the sudden attention or reject it outright. Eventually, she nodded, and he scurried off to prepare yam porridge with grilled fish, as though he were feeding royalty. Obinna didn't come down for breakfast, but she could feel his presence everywhere. In the creak of the stairs, the closing of doors, the way the house was suddenly too clean, too arranged, like everyone was bracing for something. Around noon, Uche, Obinna's assistant, approached her while she was reading a fashion blog in the living room. "Madam Amora," he said, adjusting his glasses nervously, "Oga Obinna wants to see you in his office." She blinked in surprise. "His office?" "Yes, madam. Upstairs. Third room to the right." Her heartbeat quickened as she climbed the stairs. What did he want now? Had she embarrassed him by becoming a headline? Would he accuse her of using his family name for fame? She knocked lightly on the door. "Come in," his voice called out, low and unreadable. She pushed the door open and stepped in. It was the first time she had entered his home office. Unlike the rest of the house, it was personal, shelves of books, old awards, and photos of Obinna with various dignitaries adorned the walls. He sat behind a massive mahogany desk, scrolling through something on his tablet. He looked up. "Sit." She sat on the edge of the leather chair, straight-backed, her hands clutched together in her lap. "You won," he said, as if announcing an audit result. "Yes. You used this address in your application. You understand what that means, right?" She frowned. "No. It means people now associate you with me. With my family. You've become a story. And whether I like it or not, I'm part of that story." She didn't respond. He leaned forward, folding his hands under his chin. "So now I have a decision to make. Do I continue ignoring you like I planned, or do I figure out how to make this situation work in my favor?" She didn't move. Her eyes held his for a moment, then drifted away. "Whatever you decide, I'll still follow my dream. I'm not going to apologize for that." A flicker of surprise passed over his face. It was the first time she'd spoken to him with that kind of firmness. "I didn't ask you to," he said quietly. Then, after a pause, he added, "Your training program starts next month in Cape Town. I'll have Uche handle the paperwork." Amora blinked, confused. "Wait, you're not trying to stop me?" He shrugged. "What would be the point? You already made the headlines. Besides," he trailed off and stood up, walking to the window. "Maybe it's not the worst thing in the world if people think I married a woman with ambition." She stood too. "I didn't marry you for ambition. I was forced. Just like you were." He turned to face her, the sharpness in his eyes softening just a fraction. "Touché." There was an odd silence between them. Not warm. Not cold. Just real. She left the office without another word. In the days that followed, something shifted between them. They didn't become friends, not yet, but the hostility eased. He no longer avoided her entirely. Sometimes, he joined her for breakfast. He asked about her designs. Brief conversations grew into longer ones. And for the first time, she noticed that behind the arrogant billionaire persona was a man carrying weight, expectations, image, and maybe regrets. But she didn't forget. She didn't forget the nights he left her crying. She didn't forget the way he made her feel invisible. Forgiveness wasn't automatic. Respect had to be earned. One night, as she sat sketching on the balcony, Obinna joined her with 2 cups of zobo. "I remember you said you liked it," he offered. She took it without speaking. They sat in silence for a while, the Lagos skyline twinkling in the distance. "I was cruel to you," he said eventually, his voice lower than usual. "And I'm not saying this for pity or redemption. I just didn't know how to handle being forced into something I didn't choose. And I took it out on you." She sipped slowly before answering. "I know. But I didn't choose this either." He nodded. "I know now." Another silence stretched between them. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "But maybe when you come back from Cape Town, we can start over. As equals." She looked at him long and hard. There was sincerity in his eyes. But sincerity didn't erase pain. "Let's see who I become by then," she replied. "And who you choose to be." For the first time since their wedding, they both smiled, not from obligation, but from a shared understanding that perhaps, just perhaps, this story wasn't over yet.
Don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe for more teachable and inspiring folk tales by Effie.